Two stories written 80 years apart share an identical conclusion. A man kept artificially alive past clinical death suddenly collapses into putrefaction. The first is Edgar Allan Poe's 1845 story, The Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar. Poe established the foundational narrative arc for this scenario. The second is H.P. Lovecraft's 1926 story, Cool Air. Lovecraft adopted Poe's sequence of events directly, utilizing the same underlying logic to build his narrative. Lovecraft extracted the exact method Poe used to ground impossible events, the clinical, pseudoscientific narrator. Both narrators adopt a detached, legalistic stance. They observe the suspension of death as a medical curiosity to be documented. When you strip away the prose from their opening texts, the shared vocabulary becomes obvious. You are left with a dense concentration of medical terminology. Poe called this technique the unity of effect. A dispassionate, journalistic tone forces the reader to process an absurd premise as raw data. By inheriting this logic, Lovecraft found a way to transition Gothic horror from the 19th century into a modern era defined by scientific observation. To see how Lovecraft updated this framework, we have to look at the specific methods the protagonists use to cheat death. In Valdemar, Poe relies on mesmerism. The process is rooted in spiritualism, where human willpower is granted the authority to override the failure of the physical body. In Cool Air, Lovecraft abandons willpower. His protagonist, Dr. Munoz, halts decay using thermodynamics, sustained by an ammonia absorption cooling system. This schematic details the mechanical constraints of Munoz's system. To halt organic decay, he must maintain a rigid 55 to 56 degree Fahrenheit ambient temperature inside his living quarters. His survival requires constant mechanical upkeep, gasoline engines, ammonia pumps, and a continuous supply of ice. Literary scholars classify Dr. Munoz's condition as an early example of post-humanist materialism. In this context, the human body is viewed exclusively as a biological machine subject to the laws of physics. This directly opposes Poe's worldview, where the human spirit could command the flesh even after the heart stopped beating. Lovecraft's horror is rooted in the rules of organic chemistry. He presents a universe where humans are physically incapable of overriding the properties of their own cellular matter. This shift in biological mechanics is matched by a shift in geographic setting. Poe's Gothic narrative relies on the isolated, decaying aristocratic manner, where nature acts as a malevolent participant in the horror. Lovecraft relocates the horror to a crowded boarding house in 1920s New York City. This creates an environmental paradox. Despite sharing a building with dozens of neighbors, the narrator and Munoz are entirely isolated. The urban landscape functions through indifference. The city is a vast, automated system that ignores the individual. This indifference drives the plot. When the ammonia pump breaks, the narrator cannot find the mechanical replacement parts because his emergency is irrelevant to the metropolis. This setting mirrors Lovecraft's view of the cosmos, a crowded, mechanical space that is blind to human suffering. By abandoning the rural ruin for the crowded metropolis, Lovecraft established apathy as a primary source of dread. This matrix isolates the specific elements Lovecraft adapted and those he replaced. In the first row, the narrator's stance remains locked in clinical detachment for both columns. The psychological framework required to sell the premise is identical in both eras. In the second row, the mechanism of stasis splits. Poe uses spiritual willpower, while Lovecraft employs thermodynamic materialism. Here, Lovecraft replaces the human soul with mechanical engineering. In the third row, the setting of isolation moves from Poe's rural decay to Lovecraft's apathetic density. This final adjustment moves the source of dread from local ghosts to systemic indifference. The completed matrix reveals that while the narrative structure remains intact, the individual details have been updated for a scientific age. This framework isolates how Lovecraft adapted 19th century horror to a 20th century understanding of physics. Both narratives conclude with the breakdown of the artificial preservation system. In Poe's story, the mesmeric trance holding Valdemar together is broken by the narrator, resulting in instantaneous putrescence. In Lovecraft's story, the mechanical cooling system fails when a pump breaks, leaving a dark, slimy pool on a couch. The text reveals identical outcomes. Poe describes a liquid mass of loathsome, of detestable putrescence. Lovecraft leaves a dark, slimy trail and a terrible little pool. What governs the climax of Lovecraft's story is a thermodynamic law, entropy, the steady decline of an ordered system into disorder. This line graph maps the thermodynamic principle over the text. The literary descriptions of rotting flesh represent a closed system rapidly losing structural integrity as temperature rises. In the end, neither pure spiritual willpower nor advanced mechanical refrigeration can hold off the universe's chaotic, indifferent baseline state indefinitely. Munoz's failure is a mathematical inevitability. Physics eventually reclaims what technology attempted to hide. Lovecraft's updated model suggests that in a materialist universe, the final horror is found in the inescapable, indifferent laws of thermodynamics.